we don't want to use, we don't want to pick up, we don't want to be addicted, we don't want to destroy our lives, we don't want to stay in extreme and chaotic patterns, whatever they might be. And we use the addict behavior as the number one way to put out the flames of the impermissible shame, fear, inadequacy, and trauma from our childhood.
Gabrielle Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
Well, I wanted to start today's episode for a very specific reason, because Wednesday is your sober anniversary. And I think that's really powerful and really just beautiful. And I just wanted to say, I love you and I'm so proud of you. And I don't really even have the right to say that, but I do
Of
feel
course
all
you have the
that.
right to say that.
I'm so,
Thank
it just blows me away. It really blows me away. I want
Thank
you to
you.
know that. And I wanted a very special episode for us to do around
It really is. You're making me cry already. Yeah, it really is. Thank you for saying that.
Of course.
Because yes, on Wednesday, by the grace of God, October 2nd, I will be sober 19 years.
It's unbelievable.
It is pretty unbelievable. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, I'm getting so emotional about it, but yeah, it's really incredible.
Yeah, almost half my life. It's really crazy. That's really, really crazy. Yeah.
Stunning.
Yeah, it really is. And I always like these episodes. We've had this show out for a while now, and I like these October 2nd sober episodes. Thankfully, I stay sober and we can keep celebrating year over year. And I like them because, well, God bless, thank God I stay sober, but I like them because these are my moments to be able to talk about my sober recovery with an audience that may be sober curious, or someone who may be new to recovery or struggling with addiction right now. They hopefully will hear a little bit in my story that may help them. And that's actually the reason that sober recovery really works, is when people share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. And when you hear someone that you maybe are friends with, or somebody that you admire, or somebody that you have respect for, share where they were and how they got to where they are now, it's very empowering. And it helps you recognize that you're not alone, that you're not alone. And I talk a lot about my sobriety in general. I have been very, very, very open about it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's important to me.
And you sort of touched on it, but why is it important? Like, because a lot of times sobriety is wrapped up in anonymity, right? And so it's not so forward facing. Why did you feel like for you it had to be?
Let me break that down. So the big reason for anonymity in recovery is not because we're trying to hide something. It's because in 12-step recovery, it's really frowned upon to go out in public settings and say, hey, I'm so-and-so celebrity, or I'm so-and-so with a microphone, or I'm so-and-so, and I'm in 12-step recovery, because whatever happens if that celebrity or so-and-so goes out, which happens all the time.
Right.
People slip after decades of recovery. And so the fear then, it's a PR issue, really. It makes it look like it doesn't work. And I really, really respect that. And I've been cautious to not talk too much about the origins of my recovery for that reason. Nevertheless, it's important, I think, for me from the get-go. It was not even important. It was a staple of my journey. It was the impetus for me to do the work that I do. When I got sober, I returned to spiritual faith. And in my sobriety, I became a motivational speaker. Now, I had been speaking prior to being sober. I knew that I had the skill and the desire to inspire people. And I would speak in marketing class. I was like 20 to 25, right? Now speaking in marketing classrooms, now speaking in women's entrepreneurial networks, talking about PR and marketing and entrepreneurship. And I loved speaking because it was really part of who I'm here to be. But it wasn't until I was sober that I really knew what I was here to speak for. And very quickly I started speaking about my sobriety, but in a way that I wasn't disobeying the rules, and I was being mindful of the origins and the traditions, but primarily just being very outspoken about the fact that at the time I was 25, that you can be young, you can be sober, you can make that choice at such a young age. You can live in New York City and stay clean. And the way that I was doing it was through a foundational spiritual practice and personal growth and development. And that's been the journey of my life, truly.
And you share the story often of how you were in the car and you were listening to this cassette tape of a psychic that you had seen months earlier. And you just kept replaying it.
Yeah.
And I love that. And do you feel that that was the moment? Like, did the light bulb go off when you're sitting in the car? Like, where in the, because I know what happens after.
Let's play the clip. Let's tell the story.
Okay.
It's 8 a.m. in New York City. I'm sitting in my double-parked, beat-up white Toyota waiting for the street cleaners to sweep past me. I shield my eyes from the sunlight as I chug a red Gatorade. I'm dehydrated, nauseous, and still wired from the after-party that ended 30 minutes earlier. I'm a complete mess. Having not slept the night before, I have no business being behind the wheel, even if it's to adhere to the neighborhood parking rules. I have to sit in the car for 30 more minutes before I can legally park. So I push a cassette into the tape player and press play. I've listened to this recording countless times. It's a recording from a psychic reading I'd had 5 months earlier. The psychic's first words are, "You're struggling with alcohol and drugs." I hear my voice quiver in response. "Well, it's not that bad." Within the next few minutes, she goes on to say, "My dear, you are able to exercise free will in this lifetime. You are caught between two choices. You can choose to stay on your current path and severely struggle with drug addiction, or you can choose to get clean and make a major impact on the world." I rewind the recording to hear it again, then again. Her words repeat in my head. You can choose to stay on your current path and severely struggle with drug addiction, or you can choose to get clean and make a major impact on the world. I hear her words, but I don't believe them. I cannot imagine a world free from addiction, let alone a world where I'm making a major impact. I look at the clock, 8:30 a.m. The street cleaners should be arriving soon. As I listen to the psychic on repeat, I send a text to my business partner. "Hey, late night. I won't be in the office until noon." At 24, I own a nightlife PR firm. Getting to work at noon is no big deal. I rewind the tape and play it again. You can choose to stay on your current path and severely struggle with drug addiction, or you can choose to get clean and make a major impact on the world. Outside the car, the noise of people walking toward the subway interrupts me. They look so put together with their coffee cups and shoulder bags. As I watch everyone begin their day, I accept that mine is ending. The street cleaners sweep through the lane across from me, and I follow them from behind to secure my spot. I leave my empty Gatorade bottle on the floor of my trashed car and head back into my apartment. I'm desperate to get into bed, but I have to wash my face from the night before. I jump in my moldy shower and let the water wash over me as my mascara runs down my face. When I'm done showering, I quickly get into bed and take some kind of downer. While I wait for my sleeping pill to kick in, I feverishly journal the psychic's words over and over. You can choose to stay on your current path and severely struggle with drug addiction, or you can choose to get clean and make a major impact on the world. I write so I don't have to face the severe anxiety and heart palpitations. As the pill sets in, the anxiety subsides as if it's being shut behind a door, one that will reopen when I awake. The sounds of the trash cans clashing outside my window and the people heading to work become softer and softer as I finally fall asleep. As I recall that morning, I have tears in my eyes. I can think my way back into that car as if it were yesterday. I can connect to those feelings of shame, insecurity, and unsafety. I know that girl intimately, and I'm proud of the choice she made to be the woman she is today. Even though it would take her another year of self-destruction, addiction, and near death to finally get clean and sober, she let the path unfold perfectly. I'm glad we were able to pull that clip because I share that story in the beginning of Happy Days, which is my trauma recovery journey. That book is all about my trauma recovery and talks a lot about sobriety in that book. And that experience of knowing that I had this choice of two paths that I could take and having somebody say it to me so point blank, someone that knew nothing about me, but was just reading my energy, was like, you have two choices in this lifetime: to keep on the path that you're going and really be quite destructive, or to get clean and make a major impact on the world. I all of a sudden had held this responsibility and an inner knowing that this was the path that I indeed was meant to choose, even though I didn't know how I was going to get there quite yet. And that was the new beginning for me, truly. But just getting sober was the first step. There's so many layers of recovery. 19 years in, I've lived 300 lives since then, right? I have so much newness, and I've had so many other bottoms that I've hit. I remembered 10 years into my recovery, I remembered childhood sexual abuse. I came to realize, I wrote about this in Happy Days, how I remember being around so many of my sober female friends, and they'd all be like, oh yeah, that happened to me, and sort of just brush it under the rug because it's so painful and so scary to face. And the problem is that that's what we drank over. Right. And so the traumas from our childhood are why we become addicts. And that's it. Period. An addict is someone who has unresolved emotional disturbances that they do not have the resources to manage on their own. And so they use drugs, sex, love, money, gambling, whatever it might be, as a way of protecting against the impermissible feelings that live beneath the addiction. And so they work, and in my new books, and we've got Self-Help in my hands, we talk about these parts of ourselves, and these parts of ourselves that are called protector parts. But the parts of us that are protectors could be something like a manager, which is like day to day with us, that might be controlling. Like for me, it's the controller, or maybe sometimes a manager might be a perfectionist like you. Whereas the extreme protection mechanisms are the firefighters. That's what the addicts. So there's two types of protection mechanisms. And in the book, in IFS, we call it protector parts. And we're starting to leak some of the methods from my book, guys. Mm-hmm. So in Self-Help, I'm taking the therapy that actually healed me most in my recovery, in my sober recovery, and I'm demystifying it for the self-help reader. And what it's so cool about what we're talking about today as it relates to recovery and sobriety is that the more I studied IFS, the more compassion I had for my addict part. And you pulled a really good passage from the book that I'm going to read. Have you ever, this is from my new book, Self-Help. It's coming out in December 31st, 2024. Have you ever had an experience of both resentment and relief? Maybe you were at a crossroads between the life you once knew and the path to a new way of living. Perhaps it was a 12-step meeting or a recovery center where you were torn between frustration and overwhelming sense of release. Or the day you finally walked out of the house, ending an abusive relationship, finally free, but terrified of what it would mean to be on your own. Let me take you back to that moment when I walked into a sober recovery room, standing on the precipice of a decision that would redefine the trajectory of my life. I remember the chaos of my addiction, the cocaine, alcohol, codependency, and work. Addiction ruled my life. And then, on October 2nd, 2005, I made a choice to walk into that recovery room and begin my healing journey. Resentment and relief coexisted that day. That day, I consciously chose to enter a room that held something I couldn't fully grasp, words that seemed foreign but resonated deeply. The group shared a vulnerability and connection I'd never seen before. And although it was unfamiliar, I knew I was home. I had found my people, my community, and most importantly, I'd finally made a choice. Choice is the operative word. Choice is the word. I have full body chills right now. You can testify to that. When we witness our addictions, or in cases of people who don't identify as addicts, maybe extreme patterns or behavioral patterns or reactions, and we have the bravery to witness them, through that lens of compassion or witness them as a part of us, not who we are, that's when we have choice. That's when choice becomes possible. The choice to pick up a self-help book, the choice to go to that 12-step meeting, the choice to walk out the door, the choice to ask for help, the choice. It's available to us. But we have to be first in a seat of compassion where we can look at these extreme patterns and behaviors through the lens of witnessing that they are protection mechanisms. They're not who we are. They're a part of who we are.
Also in the book, you quote Gabor Mate. He says, instead of asking why the addiction, ask why the pain.
Yeah.
In my experience, when an IFS therapist works with a firefighter, which is what
This is
you were
me
talking-
speaking now, yeah.
Yes. Instead of asking, why do you keep doing this? They'll ask, how is this part trying to help you? Addicted firefighters should not be asked to provide an excuse, but be given the chance to share the reason.
Yes, exactly.
And now I have full body chills.
Yeah. Why the pain?
Why the pain?
And that's a big issue, I think, that comes up in a lot of recovery work is the why do you keep using, right? And it's not the why do you keep using, why the addiction, it's why the pain. What is the pain? Because we don't want to use, we don't want to pick up, we don't want to be addicted, we don't want to destroy our lives, we don't want to stay in extreme and chaotic patterns, whatever they might be. We don't. But we have suffering, we have belief systems and wounds that live beneath the surface. And we use these protection mechanisms, firefighters, right, the protectors, the addicts, the addict behavior as the number one way to put out the flames of the impermissible shame, fear, inadequacy, and trauma from our childhood.
You know, many of my friends went through different levels of addiction, and I was very young and I didn't know how to help them. And I think I really judged them harshly. Like, oh, why can't you just stop? And I think that a lot of times people do think that it is within your power to just stop. And that's not really.
No. Because remember, if you have an exiled child inside of you, and that's what in IFS, we've got these experiences from our childhood where we're super traumatized. We weren't given, or even slightly traumatized, big T or small t, doesn't matter. And we weren't given the adult support and resources to process that experience, whatever it might be, big or small. And as a result of not wanting to ever feel that feeling again, we created protection mechanisms. And those are protector parts. And those protector parts exiled these young parts. And so those young traumatized children are called the exiles. And so the protectors would manage our lives with control or perfectionism. And when the managing no longer worked, that's when they would turn to the firefighter protectors to put out the flames. That's the addiction. And so for an addict, they're no different than you who may not identify as an addict, but they're no different than you in that we all have protectors and we all have exiles. It's just that their protectors became so much more extreme because the pain and the suffering of the exile was so unbearable that just trying to manage it no longer worked. So just trying to manage it with day-to-day managing protection, raging or writing or, work, whatever, raging could be an addictive pattern too. So these protection mechanisms, the protector parts of us become so extreme when the flames are so strong.
You speak with such clarity about it. And I don't know how to put this, but you speak with such clarity that it's almost as if like everybody needs to know this message, which comes back to the book, obviously, and the ability to share this message, because like that should be the way we approach not only our own addiction, but the people in our lives who we see who may be addicted as well. Because had I had some of these tools and the ability to look at it like that as the pain and the trauma within this person, as opposed to just this thing that was constantly getting in the way of my life, right? Like just blowing up in my life constantly. I would have had a much different relationship with this person.
I think that's right. If you can see someone through the lens of compassion. Now, you may be in relationship, someone listening might be in relationship with someone who's an addict, and it may be very, very destructive for their life, friend, partner, whatever it might be. And if that is indeed the case, you can have compassion for them. And when you do the work in self-help, you will end up seeing them through the lens of compassion. But that doesn't mean you necessarily stick around.
Right.
Because sticking around for the behavior means now you're enabling it. So the greatest gift we can give an addict is to separate ourselves from them, because the more we stick around, the more we pick up the pieces, the more we enable their behavior.
You talked a lot
And if somebody doesn't, this is important, someone doesn't want the help, they can't be helped.
Right.
So of course there's instances where someone might be there may be an intervention, and that intervention isn't something they wanted, but it did indeed save their life. But it's got to be they say in 12-step recovery, a mustard seed of hope. I mean, you got to have a little willingness. That's all you need. But if you don't have any willingness, oh my God. If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.